Hi, welcome to the Career Corner. My name is Heather Swift, and I'm delighted to be your host. The purpose of the Career Corner is to help move people from career distress to career success. We've just launched a new year with all of the hope, aspirations, and ideas that we want to manifest. So I thought one great way to kick off 2012 is to focus on creating abundance in our lives, in all of its forms. To take us on this journey, I've invited our guest, Rita Desnoyers-Garcia. She's a spiritual teacher. She is the creator and founder of Becoming Awake and the author of Extraordinary Abundance. Rita, welcome to the Career Corner.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I love the name of your book, Extraordinary Abundance. Not a little bit of abundance, but extraordinary abundance.
Yes.
How did you come to write that book?
Well, it started out as a course called Creating Your Extraordinary Life. Because one day I was talking to my girlfriend, and I said, I have a pretty good life, but I want to have an extraordinary life. And her eyes kind of popped open. So I started thinking about this idea of having an extraordinary life and had been going through my own journey and transformation. And I started to really focus on abundance because it's one of those things that eluded me, and I knew a lot of people around me. It also sort of was the stumbling block. So I started doing research on abundance and creating abundance in my life and all the aspects of abundance, not just money, but different aspects of abundance of health, abundance of love, abundance of joy, all the things you can think of in your life. And I started to write a very focused book just on what abundance is, how we get blocked from it, or how we block ourselves from it, and then 10 really simple, practical ways to create abundance in our life.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
It'll have to be next on my spiritual book club.
I hope so.
So how did you go to become a spiritual coach? What was your background that kind of led to this point of launching such a career?
Well, I've always been a person who liked to help people. In high school and college, I was one of those people that would bring sandwiches to Port Authority and hand them out to people.
Oh, aren't you sweet?
My mother was a little distressed by it, but
as long as you weren't bringing them home for dinner, she was probably okay.
Exactly. I was very popular at Port Authority.
They're like, here she comes. She's got turkey today, guys.
Yeah, really. Well, peanut butter and jelly mostly, but whatever I could get from home. But I always knew that I wanted to help people. Like, that was my big passion in my life. So after college, I did a program where I was a volunteer and worked with refugees, and then I went to college and I studied social work. So I was a social worker for 10 years in New York City.
Okay.
And that's where I got,
you could write a book on that,
I could write a book on that. That was very interesting, and I felt honored to do that. And then after I started a family and we moved to the suburbs, like a lot of people do, it sort of was more difficult for me to go back and forth into the city. And I started to look at things I could do locally. And I tried out different businesses while I had 3 little kids. So it got really hectic, and at one point I just felt like I went off the rails. I was in crisis. I was trying to do too much. I was trying to, in essence, save my family, and in the process was feeling really disconnected from myself and everyone else.
I think that's a big theme for a lot of women, whether you're a working mom or non-working mom, because it is a lot raising little people and trying to figure out, why am I still on this planet besides being a mom?
Yes, and I really thought that what I was doing was my passion, and it really wasn't. So the more I kind of tried to do it, one of the things that we end up doing in our lives is, if it's not working, we just do it more and harder, and then we wonder why we're miserable. So I was definitely at that point where I wasn't happy. I knew there was something better, but I just didn't know how to get there. So I hired a coach, and I hired him because I thought he was going to help me improve the business I was working in. And what ended up happening was he told me that I needed to just take a break from my business, which was a leap of faith in itself, because I was so invested in working harder. And one of the things he said to me was, if you do and do and do, sometimes you make do-do. And I was like, well, I'm definitely in that category. So what do I do? And so I took a step back, and at the same time, I had hired an au pair to live with us. So sort of in a panic. Here I was trying to build a business, and I'm taking a step back from my business, and I had this au pair. So I really had to take a leap of faith that what he said was true, that to take a break was good. And when I did, I ended up really getting more connected with who I was or who I am as a person. I started to do things like meditation. I started to walk in nature. I started to just take simple moments. I started to really look at what I believed, like what I really believed, not what I kind of told people I believed, but what I really believed, which was what was surrounding me, you know, who I was hanging out with, what I was talking about, what I was thinking about, how much money I made, what were my kids like, what were my relationships like. And once I did that, I realized that how I was living my life wasn't exactly the way I wanted. I wanted to live a different life.
And you wanted to live an extraordinary life.
I wanted to live an extraordinary life, and that's when I had that conversation. And so as I got more and more inward, things started to shift. The outward world shifted as soon as I went inward.
It's interesting. Some people think the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Do you shift your outside influences first or the inside influences first? Because they do mirror one another.
Yes. Well, what I found was I kept thinking, you know, part of the fear of going into this type of work when you're working with a coach or a counselor is, you know, will I get divorced? Will I lose my friends?
You're going to find out too much, almost.
Yeah, exactly. You'll go into this deep hole. And there was one point where I said, well, what am I going to lose my friends? And what I realized was as I shifted, either my friends shifted with me, like they literally would show up differently, or they faded away.
Which means they weren't friends anyway.
Right, or
this new
friends
time
for this
anymore.
new time.
Yeah.
And then some of them came back. So it's not like I had to do these big confrontations and interventions and things. There's none of that.
You didn't give them assessments or anything?
No. Okay. It just things wouldn't resonate anymore.
Yeah.
People wouldn't show up, or they would show up differently with me. So it was really, as I made the internal, I really realized the power of making those internal shifts, how your whole world shifts as well.
That's almost a beautiful contemplation for the new year right there.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd put that in your words for what you did, but because I think when New Year's come around, there's so much hope and
Yes.
anticipation and excitement. What is the sweet surprise going to be? What can I manifest
Right.
to say, is this working for me?
Yeah.
Is this working for my family, who I am in my core state? So how did abundance tie into this and in creating abundance in the different forms?
Well, when I realized that one of the big things in my life was I was always complaining about not enough time, not enough love, not enough money, not enough. At the core was not enough. And out of that came, I'm not enough, which is a big statement to make.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not enough.
Especially when you put anything negative after I am.
Right, exactly.
You know, you gotta watch that.
So I realized that core belief was influencing everything in my life because I kept seeing a lack around me. Even living in a suburb with a minivan and the two kids having the dream life
Yeah.
and feeling like it's not enough. So I realized abundance, if I just had some abundance in my life, then maybe I would feel more relaxed. So as I was writing the book and doing this research, I realized that actually we are abundant creatures. We're born abundant. But we block it. We block ourselves from our own abundance. So in other words, it's like being a dog chasing its own tail. The dog has the tail, but it goes crazy just going around and around and around trying to catch it. It'll never catch it. It just has it. So as long as we're trying to get the abundance and coming from that place of lack, we're never going to get what we want. Even if you have $1 million or more. There are lots of people with lots of money who are still in lack in their head.
Yeah, it's almost like a state of mind of,
Yes.
of showing up. Either you
Yeah.
come about it sense of lack or sense of abundance, so you can choose.
Right, you can choose. And you can choose right now. So one of the things that I love about the book and my own experience with it is that you don't have to start with a lot of money to feel abundant. You can start anywhere
Yeah.
and do these very simple exercises to just connect with that. Connect with the idea even of I am abundance. You know, in the beginning you may not believe it, but if you can even consider the idea that you could be abundance, then you can start noticing the seeds of it. Which is one of, I would say, if I was going to give a piece of advice or a tip, to find inward abundance is to ask for it and then notice it. To ask for it and then allow yourself to see it. Because oftentimes we're asking for things and then we go, well, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing the lack,
Yeah.
but I'm not seeing what I want.
Yeah, I only got 2 pieces, not 4 pieces.
Right.
Well, guess what? You got 2. That's
Right.
pretty good.
Right.
Other countries, people have so little. If you've traveled to India, especially, or poorer parts of
Yes.
Mexico, and
Yes.
you see how we are so abundant as a country
Yes.
in many forms. And, we are living the dream very much so. Although we're not living the dream as big as some people in other bigger houses. But
Right.
along with the bigger dream comes more problemos sometimes also.
Exactly.
So-
Well, one of the things that I notice about the United States is that we have a lot of material wealth, and yet people walk around feeling like they need more. Right?
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Really? Because the happiness doesn't come from the things, it comes from inside.
Exactly. Exactly. So from that habit of more, we never fill the hole,
No.
right? Because the hole's just always there, and we try to fill it with different things. So if you keep trying to grab from the outside to cure the inside, you're always going to be doing that. It doesn't change anything.
So what are some tips that you could share with people who are feeling more of a sense of lack and to fill in that hole so they are
Right.
looking at their current abundance?
Well, the first thing I would say, and this is a hard one for a lot of people, is to just slow down your life. In other words, you don't have to slow everything down, but just slow different periods of your life. Like one of the exercises I give in the book is breakfast time. In our house, breakfast time can be a whirlwind, right? You're kind of putting a piece of food in your mouth and you're trying to get someone dressed and you're moving over here and you're moving over there. But one of the things I do after I get the kids out the door is I sit down and I actually taste my food. I mean, it's one of the things we don't even do in our life, right?
What's that? Tasting food?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Is we kind of shove it down and then mutter and go away or something like that. So, just the practice of sitting at the table, making just a very simple meal, piece of toast, with something on it, and sitting there and actually tasting the food, slowing down enough to actually taste the food, you actually feel an abundance inside of you. So just
the
that little
consciousness
practice.
of that act alone.
Yeah, just slowing it down helps you. So if you feel like you're speeding up all the time, slow it down. Another tip I would say is to be present, which is very related. When you slow it down, you can be present. You can be fully there. So one of the things I emphasize in the book is not to go horizontal and fast, but to go vertical, to go deep and slow. That creates abundance. Because each moment when you're here right now is abundant. But we try to speed through things. The third tip I would say is when you ask for something like abundance, start noticing it. Start looking for it. Don't look for it as I'm looking for abundance because I have lack around me, but I wonder where abundance is. It's right now in my life. And you'll notice it. Take a walk anywhere in nature, you're going to see abundance. Abundance of leaves, abundance of dirt, abundance of bark on a tree. So that's a great exercise I also give in the book, is just to go into a natural place and look at a tree or look at a flower, whatever is available to you at the moment, and just really study it, just be with it. And you'll see an amazing amount of abundance.
That sounds great. We have to take a brief break.
Okay.
When we come back, we will talk more about how to attract different spiritual and material things into your life, how to live a fuller life with abundance, with Rita Desnoyers-Garcia. See you in a few minutes.
Hi, this is former Governor Tom Kean. I answered the Jersey call to service. Now you can too. Join me and thousands of people from all corners of New Jersey in making the positive changes we need. With only a couple of hours, you can learn how to bring solutions that will cut government waste and improve the quality of life in your hometown. Answer the Jersey call to service. Go to jointhecampaign.com.
Hi, welcome back to the Career Corner. We're here with our spiritual coach, Rita Desnoyers-Garcia, and we're going to be talking about the laws of attraction and abundance. So Rita, I know they're very connected. Can you talk about law of attraction? I know you do a series locally in New Jersey for lessons of that. Can you talk more about that?
Well, law of attraction is one of these laws, universal laws, that's just always going on. We're always using the law of attraction whether we're conscious of it or not. And basically the law is like energy attracts like energy. So in other words, if you're angry all the time, you're going to attract more things to be angry about. If you're happy, you're going to attract more things to be happy about. So, and I'm sure you have met people in your life who are always complaining about something. And they'll come up with 50 things to complain about. And they may not even be things that make sense to you to complain about, but they are really adamant that they should be angry about them. That's the law of attraction in process, really. And we do this all the time. Most of our lives are a mix of different things that we attract, things that we consider good, things that we consider bad. But it's always in motion. It's never stopping.
And when you talk about attraction, can you talk about how people attract good things as well as more bad things? Because sometimes when you are spiraling downward, and you think, oh, why does this keep happening to me? And more happens.
Yes.
It's like, how do you break that cycle from attracting more of the bad and flipping that around to bring in the positive?
Well, one of the things that I would recommend is, because I've been in that,
everyone
has,
yeah.
right? This is a universal thing, is when you're going into a spiral of things that can seem bad. Sometimes hitting the bottom is really good. It's an opportunity to surrender.
There's nowhere else to go.
There's nowhere, that's right. You have nowhere else to go.
You've made it, baby.
Right. And one of the things that happened in my life when I was in that crisis, or I felt like I had the life of Job, was I had to surrender. I was so desperate because what I was doing wasn't working that I was actually open to like, all right, tell me another way, because what I'm doing is obviously not working. So to really just surrender, in other words, to say to yourself, okay, this is what it is. I can't change it, but all I can do is just be present with it. I don't have to make it terrible. I can just make it what's going on for now. And I know, because I have lots of evidence in my life, my feelings will change. So if you can even get your mind around that one, that your feelings change over time. It's one of the things that I try to teach my kids. You know, oh, you were really angry before, how do you feel now? Because when you're feeling, especially a negative feeling, you think you're going to feel it forever. And that's the scary part of it. And that's when we start trying to avoid things and repress things.
Well, that's made a lot of young people take their lives. We've read more in the press the past couple of years, bullying and just different issues that young people are facing, that they don't have the experience to realize it's not always going to feel like this.
Right. It's going to get better. That's the big slogan,
It's going to get better, yeah.
It does get better. And so one of the things that really makes the law of attraction speed up and take on force is your feelings. Your feelings guide it. So if you can just allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, a lot of times that releases the feeling.
Just by acknowledging it.
Yeah, and not making it a terrible thing. So if you're feeling angry, you know, a lot of times we feel angry, and especially as women, we'll feel angry, and then we'll feel guilty about feeling angry, and then we'll feel resentful that someone made us angry. We go through a whole story in our head, and that just kind of keeps us in this angry cycle. So one of the things that I teach is shifting your feelings into a better state is really, at first, just acknowledging what you're feeling as being okay, as not being forever, not going to kill you, and that you're going to be okay. And as soon as you do that, a lot of times it just shifts just a little bit. Sometimes that's all you need to do is just shift a tiny bit, and then you go from angry maybe to revenge, right? Revenge feels a little better. You don't want to stay there, but it feels a little better than being furious, right?
That's called progress.
Right. And then you go from revenge to maybe frustration, you know, and then frustration to maybe annoyance. And you go from there, and then eventually get into more and more relief. You really want to go for feeling relief. And relief usually comes when you just go, this is how I feel.
I know when we were speaking before the show, you were talking about how one of your early focuses was helping women get happy.
Yeah. Yes.
And why, what have you noticed, what prevents us from getting happy? Is it more the self-talk or just trying to be all things to all people? Or, can you shed some light on that?
And that goes together.
Yeah.
Well, everyone has stories that they base their life on. We all have a story. And you'll know the story as soon as you talk to someone. They'll tell you your story, right? How was your day? They'll tell you a story. So one of the things that I found for myself and then found was incredibly common with the women that I work with is that we have a story in our head about the way life should be. And when it's not that way, then we're not happy. So one of the things that I talk about with women, and I did with myself, with my coach, and continue to do with myself, by the way, is going, what's the story? So tell me the story. And they go, no, this is my reality. I go, no, it's a story of your reality. It feels like your reality, but it's your story. So tell me the story. And in the story becomes very clear why they're unhappy. So for instance, it could be, my husband doesn't like me, or my kids are really bratty, or I'm a terrible mother. That's a big one. I'm a terrible mother. When you get down deep enough, it's, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I have a terrible life, no one likes me. When you really get down to it, and then I go, I'd be miserable too if I thought that. If that was my story, I'd be pretty miserable. So let's look at that. And that's when we really start the work.
It's like peeling back the story for what is the truth, not just the applied, because there's probably, that's her opinion of what's going on.
Yes.
But that's not so much a reality.
Right. And well, we create our reality from that.
Okay.
I mean, one of the quotes I have on my website is, we don't see reality for what it is, we see it from who we are. That's how we see reality.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And basically what that means is there are events happening in your life, but based on our beliefs and our stories is how we interpret everything. So when you get that piece of information, you go, oh wow, that means I could have actually the same thing happening in my life, but be a lot happier about it. Or tweak it, or move differently with it, and change it. So when you start to really understand that and start taking steps, which can be scary because we're used to moving in certain ways based on our story, all the other characters in our story start shifting too.
Yeah, they have to.
They have to, because they're just playing based on our story.
Yeah.
So if we change the story...
Well, maybe if we hand out a script saying, the story's changed, here's your new lines.
Exactly.
Here's your new parts.
Exactly.
Going through that. Do you have any examples you could share of some success stories of people, or male or female, that you've helped transform or get in touch with their own greatness?
Well, one of the things that I talk about, we work on a lot of different things. So one of the clients I had was very focused on how her husband was not very supportive of her and her kids were not very supportive of her. She felt unsupported, unlistened to. And so when she told me that, I said, okay, tell me the story. And she would go on about he doesn't listen to this, he doesn't listen to that. And I said, so do you listen to yourself? Do you ever listen to yourself? And she was like, what? No, everyone on the outside is supposed to listen to me so that I know that I have a valid point and I'm approved of. And I said, no, you need to listen to yourself. Don't worry about anyone else. Just listen to yourself for a week. And when she did that, she was like, I don't know, Rita. I don't know where you're going with this. And I said, just try it. And when she started to really listen to herself, she realized she had all these stories in her head. And there were all these parts of herself that were neglected. And when she started to attend to all that, and it took time, it didn't take a week, it took time, because the story is very persistent. Things started to shift. And within a period of time, she ended up getting a gift of a ski vacation from her husband, who had totally planned the whole thing for her. Went off to Utah, one of her favorite things to do is to ski. And she realized, wow, people do love me. I am totally loved and supported, but I wasn't listening to me. And when I didn't listen to me, I kept trying to rely on them to validate things, and they never did enough because, I wasn't validating myself. So she shifted a lot just by listening to herself.
She probably realized too how needy she was sounding, that if she was on the other side of receiving that every
Right.
day,
Right.
you know, going to your kids and your husband for every
Right.
validation, that's a
That's
lot
a
of
heavy
energy for the
load.
people in your life.
Yes, and so she unburdened them,
Mm-hmm.
and she unburdened herself, and then it just blossomed. I mean, it was like amazing to see the transformation. So it's just something as simple as when you're demanding something from someone else,
Mm-hmm.
are you giving it to yourself?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good example. Any other?
Well, another sort of law of attraction story I would say is I had a client who was looking for a job. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she was thinking of, I want to work and do this stuff, but I don't know, it's never gonna go with the kids' schedule, and I want to do this. And she had lots of sort of itinerary conditions she needed. And I said, why don't you write down everything that you want in this job, especially how you want to feel about it. You know, what are the hours that you want? What's the salary that you want? What do you want to be doing? Who do you want to be working with? How do you want your day to go, your ideal day? And so we worked on this for a period of time, and we worked on other things too. And by the end, she ended up, through 2 phone calls, getting a job where they basically asked her, what hours do you want to work? How
That's
much do you want to
great.
get paid? And was paid exactly the amount she wanted to pay. So it just like came to a
It
right in her
all
lap.
manifested.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
exactly.
great. So what, we just have like 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So I want you to be able to share, what kind of work are you doing locally and how do people find you? And I know about your book, and there is a CD I heard
Yes.
about as well. What's on the CD?
The CD is called The Forest Meditations, and it's 13 guided visualizations or meditations. Most of them are based in the forest,
Okay.
and they're for all sorts of things, for abundance, or a big part, just finding your own internal wisdom, peace, looking at fear, walking through fear. So there's sort of lots of different, depending on your mood.
Okay.
It's a great tool if you're a beginning meditator,
Okay.
and you're not sure about just sitting there in silence, to just sort of,
To give your mind something to work on and to focus
it's
on.
like training
Okay.
wheels for meditation.
Okay.
Then I have the book. I also do private coaching, so that's one-on-one coaching, very
Okay.
individualized on pretty much anything that you want to accomplish or ways that you want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have this Law of Attraction series. So I have a workshop every month, at least one workshop, and the next one is January 21st, and that's a beginning workshop, 2.5 hours. And then I also have 2 sets of courses after that. One is immediately after the first workshop is sort of a beginner's month-long course. And then I have a longer course for people who've done the work and want to refine and improve. It's a 3-month course.
Great. And
It's a
they're
lot.
based out of Maplewood or South Orange?
Yes,
New
well, they're
Jersey?
all on some of them are on the phone.
Oh, great.
So you can be from anywhere. Some
Okay,
of them are
great.
local. The workshop is local for right now.
Super.
Yeah, and the others are on the phone.
And your website is Becoming Awake?
Is becomingawake.com.
Which will be right down
Yes.
here on the web, on the TV right now.
Excellent.
So great. Well, thank you so much for being on the Career
Thank
Corner.
you.
And thank you, audience, for joining us with this wonderful way to kick off the new year. If you'd like to see some more shows, check us out on YouTube at the Career Corner on SOMAtv.org. And until we meet again, I wish you much career success.